dioxin, arsenic, DDT, fluoride, HCB, mercury, PCBS, E. coli, poop, chlorine, MTBE, various medical drugs, lead, percolate, microplastics, chromium-6. You may be wondering, why am I naming all these lethal and toxic chemicals? But actually, the truth is, that's what's in our drinking water. And that's right, it's true. We're being poisoned. And if you don't believe me, take a look at the next video. Make sure that you watch it until the end so that you're well informed. And then afterward, meet me here in the third video to talk about the solution.
We all know it's bad to have poop in our drinking water.
Or gasoline, pesticides, copper, lead, arsenic, radioactive substances, even rocket fuel.
The concentration of chemicals in some places is so high that you can literally light the water on fire.
Just give it a second. Whoa.
The Environmental Protection Agency tells Congress 96% of the problems are in small communities. Schools are a big concern. The Associated Press reports 1 in 5 with their own water supply have violated standards.
Well, right now we don't have any direct monitoring requirements at schools.
Lawmakers say EPA's new plan must be more than just words on paper.
The vast majority of this committee expects you to take action to protect our kids and our families. And anything less than that, we'll consider a stall.
A local woman in the national spotlight telling her story about the water quality in her community.
Today, the woman who lives in Boone County appeared on the Dr. Oz show, and as News Channel 3's Will Jones reports, she says her family and neighbors have suffered a lot of heartache as a result of the drinking water in Prenter.
It's an hour, I think.
Surrounded by her neighbors.
We're like the first 10 minutes there.
All eyes were on Jennifer Hall Massey as she made her national television debut on the syndicated show Dr. Oz.
Jennifer's with us today. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
The show focused on dirty drinking water in America. Jennifer shared her story about the problems with the drinking water in Prenter, a community where many depend on well water. Their drinking water looks like this, and she says it's making people sick, including her children.
Ryan had reflux, an extreme case when he was an infant. Clay had eczema really bad all over his face, his legs, his arms.
Worst of all, Jennifer blames her brother's death on the drinking water. She says he developed a brain tumor like several of her neighbors. And as she watched herself on television, tears flowed from her eyes.
Hopefully it will save a life. Maybe someone can realize, before they lose their loved one, that they're, drinking toxic water.
Me, as a parent, I feel more comfortable giving her bottled water.
I drink Poland Spring, and that water is clean. It looks clean. It tastes clean, and it's like
it's clean.
Yeah.
It's clean.
Bottled water, we were told, is cleaner, safer, healthier.
Another of nature's gifts you can use to do something healthy.
We took 5 bottles of national brands of bottled water and a sample of tap water from this drinking fountain in the middle of New York City and sent them to microbiologist Aaron Margolin to test for the bacteria that can make you sick, like E. coli. What did he find?
There was actually no difference between the New York City tap water and the bottled waters that we evaluated.
The labels on the bottles do suggest they're special. Some show mountains or polar bears, but many of the names are wondrously misleading. You have to look at the fine print to find out that Everest water is not from Mount Everest, it's from here, Corpus Christi, Texas. Glacier Clearwater is not from a glacier. Its source is tap water from Greenville, Tennessee. Couldn't find any glaciers around here. Big selling Dasani, Aquafina, and 25% of all bottled water sold is just reprocessed tap water from cities around the country. One of Aquafina's sources is the Detroit River. But bottom line, if you buy bottled water because you think it's healthier than tap, test after test shows no evidence of that. And if you buy fancy brands because you think they taste better, you're probably just buying the hype.
Whether you need it or not, it's a virtual medicine cabinet in your tap water if you live in many, many areas across the country. There's a scary new report out today. The Associated Press did a big amount of research on this, and the findings show that there were traces of prescription drugs in the water supply used by 41 million Americans in some of the biggest cities in the U.S. The list includes over-the-counter pain medication, mood stabilizers, even hormones. CNN's Elizabeth Cohen joins us now from the Medical Update Desk in Atlanta. First, explain where they found it and what it is that they found, Elizabeth.
Well, the Associated Press, Karen, they spent 5 months investigating this, and they looked at various municipal water supplies. Not all of them keep track of whether or not there are pharmaceuticals, but the ones that do, they all had traces of various medicines. And I'm going to give you a list. This will give you some idea of the kinds of things that they found. For example, in Atlanta, where I am right now, they found that the water contained traces of antibiotics, blood pressure drugs. In Cincinnati, cholesterol drugs. They found a trace of one of those, and estrogen that women sometimes take for medicinal reasons. And in New York City, they found a trace of a seizure drug and an anti-anxiety drug. Now, to give you sort of the big picture, how many drugs did they find in the drinking water? In Philadelphia, they found trace amounts of 56 different drugs. In New York City, they found traces of 16 drugs, and in northern New Jersey, 13 drugs. Now, the question that right now is on everyone's mind is, how in the world did drugs get into our drinking water?
Well, do you know what's in your drinking water? A shocking Associated Press investigation found various pharmaceuticals in the drinking supplies of at least 41 million Americans. Tainted water was found from New Jersey to California. NBC's Tom Costello is following the story from Washington. Tom, I've been dying to ask somebody some questions about this story. First of all, what kinds of drugs are we talking about, and how dangerous is this?
Pretty wide range. Here's the drinking water in Washington, D.C. They found 6 pharmaceuticals in our drinking water here. They include ibuprofen, caffeine, monosin, and about 3 or 4 others. In Philadelphia, they had 56 pharmaceuticals or byproducts. They range everything from epilepsy medication to mental health medicines to pharmaceuticals that really run the gamut. Here's the bottom line from the Associated Press on the study they did. It was, as you mentioned, a 5-month investigation involving the AP investigative team. 50 major cities in 50 states were looked at, and drugs were found in the water of 24 major cities. We're talking 41 million Americans here who drink that water. So what's in the water? Everything from acetaminophen and ibuprofen to mood stabilizers, antibiotics, angina, heart, as well as cholesterol drugs, and even sex hormones. The trouble here, Meek, is that the federal government does not test specifically for pharmaceuticals in the water. And in fact, there is no way to scrub water that is in a treatment plant for pharmaceuticals. And so now we have a situation where states and cities across the country are just starting to realize that there are the remnants of pharmaceuticals in the drinking water. All of that said, we should emphasize, we're talking here about parts per billion or trillion, really minute traces of pharmaceuticals that are in the water. And you say, well, how did it get there? Well, without getting too graphic, all of us who take medication for one thing or another, we don't absorb all of it. It is excreted. It gets into the sewage system, into the water treatment plants. And then, because water treatment plants can't scrub it all out, if any of it, it just kind of dilutes on into the water system. Sometimes it gets into the water table, into wildlife, and then into reservoirs. It goes back into the water treatment site, into the water treatment plants.
I wonder if there's going to be, long-term study about effects of this down the road. And, but I guess initially, Tom, the question I'm sure you're asking today is there anything the government can do about this?
Yeah, and the EPA says it's concerned about it, but we don't yet know, and water treatment utility plants say they are convinced that there is no immediate threat to anybody out there. That said, I did a story about 4 years ago in which we found a river in Colorado, and now we know there are many rivers, in which the fish were turning from male to female. And the reason was because there was too much estrogen in the water. The natural female hormone was literally turning male fish into female fish, and the thinking was that this is a canary in a coal mine. So now the question is, what's the impact on humans?
Water contamination is now on the minds of every American in light of the developments in Michigan. The states of Alabama, Louisiana, West Virginia, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Indiana, they're all reporting extensive exposure to lead poisoning, in some cases greater than what has been measured in Flint, Michigan. And now many want more reporting on the issue and more regulation, especially at the federal level. So how safe is our water tonight? For more, let's turn to our newsroom and turn to Simone Del Rosario in our newsroom for more on this story. Simone, other states now are reporting some high levels. What does this mean? How did we get to this point?
Well, if there's one thing, Ed, about this disaster in Flint, it's that it's drawing attention to the issue nationwide and causing a lot more people to take a closer look at their drinking water. You mentioned several states where children may have lead poisoning at higher rates than Flint. Here's a look at those counties. At the top, Houston County, Alabama, tested 12 children for lead poisoning in 2014. 7 of them came back positive. I know it's a small sample size, but still, that's 58%. Fact is, though, we still know so little about lead poisoning on a national level, and that's because only half of the country's counties even report lead poisoning data to the CDC. It's actually not required. But lead should be just one of our concerns when it comes to the water we drink. Here's a pretty scary look at the toxins they regularly find in our drinking water. Along with lead, there's arsenic, fluoride, chlorine, mercury, dioxin, which is known to increase chances of cancer, PCBs, DDT and HCP, those are pesticides linked to diabetes and cancer, perchlorate used in rocket fuel and explosives, and MTBE, an additive for gasoline.
A health alert at this hour. A big bottled water recall this morning over E. coli fears. More than a dozen brands bottled by the same company may be contaminated with the bacteria. Several grocery stores involved. ABC's Rena Ninan right here with the story this morning. Rena.
Hey, good morning to you guys. You know, there are all kinds of fancy water bottle filters that take impurities out of the water. But this morning, the nationwide recall is for water bottles that look more like this one, with specific instructions on how you can protect your family.
This morning, a multi-state recall in huge chains like 7-Eleven, Wegmans, and ShopRite. H2O bottled by Niagara Water now being pulled from shelves at 14 chain stores in almost a dozen states over fears of E. coli contamination. The company issuing this alert: boil water before using, finding the E. coli bacteria during a test of its Pennsylvania water supply this month. Niagara Water voluntarily pulling the bottles from stores because E. coli can cause things like nausea and severe cramping. It's especially dangerous for children and the elderly.
One of the ways a company knows that their water is safe to drink is testing it for E. coli. If they find E. coli in there, there's something wrong with their process.
It doesn't mean everyone who drinks water contaminated with E. coli will get sick. But with 10 billion gallons of bottled water consumed in the U.S. every year, there's the big question. How can you know if the water in the bottle you're reaching for is safe? In most cases, you can't.
Dangerous drinking water? A new report shows a chemical is in tap water and you might not even know about it. 4 in Your Corner's Deborah Souverain went county by county here in Southwest Florida to see just how safe our water is, and she joins me live in the newsroom with what she found. Deborah?
Amy, chromium-6 is a known cancer-causing chemical. However, most people out there aren't even aware that they're consuming it. And what I found out about our local tap water may surprise you. Each colored area on this map shows where a cancer-causing chemical called chromium-6 was found in tap water. The chemical was made famous by the film Erin Brockovich.
Hexavalent chromium can be very harmful.
So it kills people.
Oh, yeah.
Which tells the story of a single mother who exposed a California utility company for contaminating their water with chromium-6. But a new study is revealing the chemical is a widespread problem, and it's in your tap water too. Test samples show Lee, Charlotte, and Collier counties all tested positive for the carcinogenic chemical. Collier County showing the highest levels in the area, with the greatest concentration found in Naples tap water. Several of Lee County's water supplies also tested positive, with Cape Coral's water supply showing the strongest levels of chromium-6, and Charlotte, which had the lowest numbers in the region. They're all well over the 0.02 parts per billion, recommended by the California Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. I called their office.
It's an ongoing issue, and I think that the group that put out this report wanted to call attention to the fact that there are levels of chromium-6 in the drinking water of much of the country.
In fact, according to the recent study, this chemical many of us are consuming is linked to lung cancer and reproductive problems.
Chromium-6 does cause cancer. Our public health goal was based on a study that found rats and mice who drank water with chromium-6 developed gastrointestinal tumors.
You might be thinking drinking bottled water can help you avoid this chemical, but that's not necessarily the case. Your tap water actually has to go through more rigorous testing than bottled water. Reporting live in the newsroom, Deborah Souverain, Fox 4, in your corner.
Now, people were getting sick because they're ignorant to this information, and I feel this is a blessing in disguise to be informed of this knowledge. So, okay, the next step is to really make it entirely up to you. The more you drink your tap and bottled water, the more you're exposing yourself to sickness and health issues. Don't forget showering. If you shower with the toxicity of the water getting into your scalp and pores, this will definitely have a negative effect on your health as the poison is seeping into your bloodstream. Okay, I've educated you long enough. Now it's time for you to take charge. Click the link and go into our site to get more information and make a healthy decision. We even have financing if you're short on funds at the moment. Your health is what's important to us. So sign up for our Water Wellness newsletter to always be informed of new health issues and products. And I'll see you inside.